Hey, tourpreneurs, it's Mitch Bach, and just a quick note before we begin today's episode. Tourpreneur is currently sponsored by Google. We're thankful for their support of our community, and we are offering with them a completely free course helping you unlock the power and potential of Google's Things to Do program, which is specifically helping tour operators add their tours to Google in new ways that gives you new exposure and more direct bookings. To learn more, go to tourpreneur.com/Google. And as always, show notes, more resources, links to our newsletter, our business coaching community, and so much more are available on tourpreneur.com. Now to the episode.
So welcome everyone to the Women in Travel Tourpreneur podcast. Very excited to have a delightful group of women here today to talk about their own experiences shifting careers into the tours and activities sector. So I think this will be a really interesting one for anyone who's considering that or has recently done that, or maybe did it a while ago and just kind of wanted to reflect on the changes that have happened over this wild journey. So I would like to first introduce myself. My name is Amanda Walkins. I'm the managing director at the Tourism Marketing Agency. And I will pass the mic over to Caroline to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, I'm Caroline Cotter, otherwise known as Wine Dine Caroline, and I run wine and food experiences in France, particularly in Lyon.
Amazing. I still have to come and do one of those tours. I'll be there, don't worry. And Carol, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Carol El Hawari, and I own and manage Mr. and Mrs. Egypt and literary tours in Egypt.
Aptly named. Zakia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you, Amanda. Hi, I'm Zakia Mulawigiri. I run a social enterprise called Invisible Cities, based out in Scotland, beautiful Scotland, Edinburgh. And I actually do not come from very far from Lyon. Originally, so that's funny, but also run different locations and walking tours in Manchester, Glasgow, and York as well.
And soon to be a few more cities, I believe, that are in the works.
And soon to be all over the UK.
Yeah. Awesome. And Mary, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. My name's Mary Collins. I run a food tour company called Blue Fern Travel in Washington, D.C., and also Far Horizons, which does archaeology tours internationally. So
quite different experiences. So speaking of different experiences, Mary, we can actually start with you. Do you want to tell us about what your career transition was and sort of how that went for you, especially now that you've got two different types of tour operations happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess probably started really with I have a master's in public administration. And really that's what led to my first, I guess we'll call it career with the government. I worked for the federal government for the Department of Veterans Affairs, focused on like budget, strategic planning, things like that. And I guess for me, I kind of always knew I wanted to start a travel company, and it's had many iterations until getting to this point. But essentially, kind of through really mentorship, which I know we've touched on in earlier episodes. But really, I learned that for me personally, it's kind of taught you have to like build that business before you quit your day job and don't just like take the jump. I think is a little bit contrary to what a lot of people hear. But ultimately I did it as I would say, I guess, a side hustle until it got big enough that I was able to quit and just run the food tours full time. And I mean, it was challenging. I kind of always thought that was the main job and the government was the side hustle, but it's just kind of how it worked out. It took about 5 years though. It was not, super fast moving. But yeah, that was kind of the transition. And then I was very happy to be on my own schedule and able to wear whatever I wanted, because that was back when we got to go in the office, which maybe people aren't doing anymore. So
yeah. I mean, I can tell how much you really enjoyed that by the way that you rolled your eyes while saying that you were doing budgeting. Like that was budget,
which comes very in handy in this line of work. But
true.
Government budget is a whole different thing. So.
Yeah, but applicable skill sets that you're learning from other spaces. So I think
I
that's
always
really
joke
important.
that I really do love spreadsheets. So
Can I hire you, please?
Me too.
My
Yeah, me
spreadsheets.
too.
I do color code them. That's too much information, but whatever.
I love this. Well, Caroline, have you also done a similar kind of transition? Did you have a prior career path?
Well, I was always in the wine business and in food. So I've been in wine for 15 years and I've done a lot of different roles in the wine industry. So I came upon tourism really accidentally. I moved to Lyon after, well, for no real good reason. I just was not happy in San Francisco. So I came to Lyon and I tried to get a job in the wine business, and there were no jobs for me here. The wine jobs are in wine country, and my French wasn't really that good. And I looked around and realized that nobody was doing wine tourism in the city. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll do that. And it was the best decision I ever made. I love working in tourism because our clients are happy. Mm-hmm. They're on vacation. Every person that walks through my door, I do these wine tastings in my home. Everyone's amazing. I get friends for life. I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's turned into something, really different. Obviously the pandemic, killed it for a minute, but things are back to life. And my business is now moving into multi-day, higher end experiences. And that has been really fulfilling. I love working in travel. I think it's awesome. But I did have a niche beforehand, which allowed me to do that. So that was something that I feel really grateful for. And I think did allow me to have a leg up in some way, because I am an authority in wine. And so it's easy also for me to command higher prices as well. And I'm not in the race to the bottom. I'm not trying to be the cheapest. So that is one thing I would also recommend if you are considering a shift. Don't play that game.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Don't ever do that.
Yeah.
Carol, I know you've had a career shift. Do you want to walk us through
what you... So I worked in IT for 10 years just after I graduated, and I worked in banking for 17 years. Then I moved to Egypt and worked in education for 5 years, it would be. And then the company I was working for closed down entirely in Egypt, just as COVID happened. And since I'd had this dream since as I not so much to have a tour company, but I loved Egypt. It's a bit of a long story, so I'm not going to repeat it all, but I loved Egypt and I loved Agatha Christie especially. And I said to my husband, not very long after we met, I think we should do a tour on this, because people want to do this. And that's what started literary tours in Egypt. But that was before I actually went into it full time. Then the company shut down, and we decided that not only would we really make a go of literary tours, but we would also completely relaunch my husband's other side of the branch, other side of the company, for the whole of Egypt, not just the literary tour side. So it's what I would agree with similar to Caroline, actually, not so much that I had a niche, but I had 32 years worth of commercial experience, in huge companies, that has really stood me in good stead in doing this. In what I would call, banking has its issues, but there are, in some ways, that I got a really good grounding in the right way, or the best way to do things, like financially and all that kind of thing. But oh my God, it was a baptism by fire moving into the tourism sector. It really was. And I still do, but I spent a lot of time thinking, oh my God, I know nothing. I know nothing, literally. But actually, I think I know nothing, but I don't, because of course I have been a tourist to lots and lots and lots of countries, which really helps. But again, like I also would never go, well, this is what I keep saying to everybody, my family, my team, everybody, that we cannot fail, because I am never, ever going back to work for anybody else again as long as I live.
Amen.
It's got to work. I'm extremely motivated to make it work for that reason, amongst many others.
Yeah, absolutely.
Preach.
And Zakia, do you want to talk about your work transition, your career path?
I think, so I had worked previously in not-for-profits within international development and in the homelessness sector in particular. And I guess my story is a bit different because I really wanted to continue working on that and supporting people and keep on supporting people. But I also personally loved travel and realized the value that it was bringing in my own life as travel was a big part of my work, and of my life for a long time, for loads of years. I was away from my home 7 months a year, something like that. So I was like, I'll combine the two. That's what I'll do. And then started Invisible Cities, where we work with people with the lived experience of homelessness to become guides. So not only did I start a business, but I also started this very weird hybrid not-for-profit with a tour company, so trying to make money, which I absolutely, love what you're saying, Caroline. We do need to make loads of money, but even more so because we use the money for us to train more people and things like that. So it's even more of a bad word, because really when you help the world, you should do it for free. And so it was that kind of double, issue. And also I had no experience in the travel sector. I didn't know anyone else who did that in Edinburgh, where I am. And it was side hustle, like I say, for 2 years, until I was like, okay, now I can kind of make it and take the full-time thing. And again, Carol, I can never go back to working for anyone else, working in an office. Absolutely not. I've been completely ruined for this. But I think I found that locally, if I'm being honest, the kind of support wasn't quite there, because Edinburgh is very competitive. There's loads of walking tours, and there was a lot of like, who are you? What do you want? Why are you coming into this space? And I think some of that is related to also who our guides are and what we do. And there was a lot of people were really wary. Internationally, that was a completely different story. Everybody was really supportive and really trying to help. And I think COVID has really helped with that. People have really come together locally now and are really trying to support one another. So I found a lot of confidence and support in that local and international kind of sector network, if you want. And learned, the hard way by making a lot of mistakes and having a lot of 3 a.m. waking up thinking, oh my God, I'm definitely going to prison for this. Or, oh my God, I completely forgot to pay this, whatever the question was. And so I think having the people around you, who support you day to day with the moral support. My sister often jokes whether or not she's going to get paid at the end of the month for all the moral support she still brings to me. And, but, and maybe for me, the difficult part was I was never someone to save a penny. So when I left my job, which was in the not-for-profit, I wasn't making loads of money anyway to start with, but I left and thought, I'm going to start something. And then I had to get jobs day to day to pay for my bills. So that was a massive issue, a big risk. And sometimes I think now that I'm in my mid-30s, would I do the same? Would I take the same risk? I don't know, because I think it was I don't know how I managed to survive it and make it happen, for 2 and a bit years before things starting to be more regular. So it's really exciting though. And I think, that mentality absolutely has to work is still there, but it's definitely difficult to kind of navigate and especially maybe in a place like I said, Edinburgh is very competitive. You have walking tours everywhere in the city, so maybe starting in a different place would have been a different story. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one to guess, because every place has its own little challenges. But yeah, I think, taking whatever you can from prior experience and applying it is so important. And you've each touched a little bit on the challenges of starting in a sector that you're unfamiliar with. But beyond that, learning curve, I guess, what were some of the other challenges earlier on? If you can remember, it was a while back for some of you, but some of the challenges in just kind of building a business, starting on your own, whatever maybe stands out. I know Mary mentioned that it was like a side hustle and trying to double down, and Zakia saying trying to find these jobs to make this work. Like what was the biggest thing that you could pass on to someone else that you learned?
Recognize that you probably can't do everything yourself. Because that to me, that's and outsource what you either can't do or don't want to do, because and aside from the coach that I mentioned, where I don't think I'd be here without her, the other, and this is again about you Amanda, our TMA at least, literary tours in Egypt and Mr. and Mrs. Egypt would not exist without TMA, and that's because I made the decision to outsource building the website and all that whole stuff, because that is absolutely not I tried and it was not good. It just does not play to my strengths. I have other strengths. So that was my biggest decision, was I'm going to outsource that, and I'm going to use my strengths in the places that they'll be most needed. I think that's probably, if I was given one piece of advice, it would be, so it hasn't just been those things that I have outsourced, because I've also done other things, but that bit of it was critical.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to definitely say that, yeah, you cannot have a bad website. It's not negotiable. If you can't or don't want to do it yourself, you must outsource it. But if you can and do want to do it yourself, there are a lot of tools that are available to you. You can learn SEO. I do all of it myself. I really enjoy that work. It's some of the work that I like about having my own business, but somebody has to do it, and it has to be good. It cannot suck.
Yeah,
I always
absolutely.
think of websites. I mean, at least for me, I don't have a brick and mortar. So I'm like, well, people invest a lot in that, kind of in that same way of walking in the front door, making sure it looks nice. You've got your little shirt set up wherever. And so I kind of think of that with the website of like, I'm not going cheap on this. Like, we're going to make sure it looks really great and get all the right pictures and all of that.
And that's functional. It has to be easy to use for the customer on their phone.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I guess for me, just starting out, I would just say, like, just generally, I think, we've touched on probably women being underestimated, whether in this episode or not. But I think like walking in the front door of all the restaurants and being like, hey guys, guess what we're going to do? And just needing them to take us seriously was a big deal. And so we we got our logo and we got our business cards all made up before, and we didn't make them really cheap. We made them nice, like just anything you could do that was those little touches that people were like, oh, this is a real thing, and just, I think that was for us a big hurdle. Like, I mean, restaurants are kind of hard to hear back from anyway. So, you have to get them excited about what you're doing. And, most of them hadn't heard of food tours. It wasn't really in the neighborhoods we went to, that wasn't really a thing. And so that was definitely an uphill battle for the first little while.
I do have something to that effect as well. I think, if you're doing something new, that can be helpful, but it also is confusing. I've been doing wine tastings in the city and not tours. And people call me, they're like, will you take me to the winery? And I'll do that now for 2,000 euros for half a day if you want me, because I'm not, again, racing to the bottom. My time is, I would way rather work less for more money. And I don't mind being the most expensive. But I did kind of have to explain it. But something that was very powerful for me, and it's not something everyone has control over, but I do want to mention it, is that I started at a moment that coincided with the Women's World Cup here in Lyon. And so even though I had no reviews on TripAdvisor and I had barely run any tastings, I was able to piggyback on that because everybody else was fully booked. So if there is a big event happening where your competitors might be fully booked, you can kind of slip in there at the beginning. I mean, that helped me, and beg for reviews. You have to explain to people that you need the reviews because it does matter. Even though TripAdvisor is terrible, we need the reviews. You need it on Google. You need it on TripAdvisor. Copy and paste both places. Say that in person. It is not shameful to ask for that. And especially at the beginning, you need to follow up with an email a couple days later saying, hey, hope you loved your tour. Please write me an email. This is how I get business. Love you. Bye. That is important.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the most important thing you have, and that's what to remember, is your name and your brand, or and your reputation. So day to day that things are chaotic. You're starting off. You don't really know what you're doing. It's hard, but nobody else does. And I think that one piece of advice I got ages ago was, once you start saying it out loud, so talking about your company, saying the name, then it's real. Nobody knows that it's just you in a cupboard trying to do work, and I think
manifesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I believe in that, but I didn't want to go there in case other people thought that was a bit.
You need a vision board.
There we go. But I think, yay, it's really important, and it goes back to, you can make anything look good, and you have to make it really good, and also to make it authentic to who you are and what you do. Like you say in Carolina, okay, I don't do toast to winery, and that's fine, but at least be very clear on that, or say, okay, yes, I can, but this is the price, and have that authentic voice. Because for me, 60 years down the line, what comes back is always that. It's always how, it's not for everybody, but if it is for me, I really like it, because the product is the same as what you say it is. The people are the same, voices are authentic, and that's really important. And building your brand is really important. And I really don't think that it comes down to the logo or what color you use. And, those things are important, but your brand and your identity and your voice, that's what's important, and because apart from the big brands of the world, I don't really remember anyone else's logo. And some companies I absolutely love, but if you ask me right now to draw what their logos are like, I'd be like, don't know. But I think so, and that's worth spending the time on. And I'm really happy that I thought so, and I did at the beginning, because it is a lot of work, and sometimes it can seem like, no, I want to just do something else or whatever. Actually, finding your voice and your identity and your brand, and and building that is worth investing every step of the way, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Love that. I know we could talk about, highs and lows of starting a business, of getting into tourism, of, being your own boss all day. And we probably should separately, when Caroline starts her wine retreats, we can all meet up and do that.
That would be amazing.
But thank you all for contributing, for sharing your experience and your tips and advice. I hope that this was valuable especially for other women who are considering a career shift, and hopefully jumping into tours and activities to join us. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.